It's time to purge. Honestly, I wish I could keep everything, but I'm starting to run out of space. It's getting a bit cluttered in my tiny little studio, and I'm continuing to work with synth companies, so there's no shortage of other synths, new synths that are coming in. I'm in a position now where I just have too much gear. I can't handle it, some of which I bought myself, and some of which was given to me in exchange for content. At this point, I think it's important for me to really narrow down my focus on YouTube and just like artistically, creatively. And so now's the time to clear out some instruments that aren't, I won't say aren't clicking with me, but there's like a lot of overlap in my setup. So yeah, I actually have some pretty high-end gear, which it's just not possible. I haven't gotten around to really exploring it and figuring out a fresh take on how to use it. I think that getting rid of some stuff will just allow me to breathe a little bit more. You know? And just to be clear, this isn't like a
"this gear sucks, so I'm selling it"
type video. This is not it at all. I look at it as more of like a preference thing, but of course there is a reality to the situation as well, obviously. As I mentioned, I have some overlapping gear, and some gear is just better at doing the thing. All that being said, the money that I'm making from selling this gear will surely just be reinvested back into my studio in some way, maybe another piece of gear. I've been looking specifically at the RMX 1000, which is like a DJ effects looper, or maybe the Octatrack. Maybe you guys have some other suggestions. I'm not looking for anything that's like ultra trendy at this point. I just want something that fits my setup and allows me to perform. Today's video is sponsored by DistroKid. They are a music distribution platform that allows you to upload your music to places like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, all the major streaming platforms. They've really geared themselves towards like DIY independent artists like me, and we'll be getting into specifically one of their free promotional tools. It's called Hyperfollow, which is essentially a link in bio link. It's free. I use it on all of my social medias and also for my single releases as well, because you're able to claim as many pages as you'd like for free. So more on that later in the video. All right, so we're going to start with pocket operators. At this point, I own all of them. I am definitely sad to get rid of these, but I'm keeping the 4 of them that I like best. I mean, it is cool and fun to be that guy that owns all 12 pocket operators. I've gotten some good use out of all of them. I'm keeping the PO12 and PO32 because those two I find are great for drums, and I use them as actual drum machines. I'm also keeping the POKO, so the PO33, which is also like the classic sampling pocket operator. Can't get rid of that one. Another thing about the PO Tonic, so the PO32, is there's a software to go along with it. I haven't checked it out yet, and that's another part of the reason why I'm keeping it. I'm also keeping the PO35 Speak because I love the effects on it, and I think it's great for sampling your voice. Honestly, I don't know like what kind of flack I'm gonna be receiving for getting rid of these. Like, I know that all pocket operators are different, but you have to admit there's like a lot of overlap there, and I don't need all 12 of them. Like, I could actually see those 4 contributing to my future as a producer and artist, so I'm keeping them, I'm sticking to it. For anyone who's interested in any pocket operator, I've done like a full-on thorough review of all 12 of them. There it is. I don't know. I'm on the edge about this one, but the model samples. I picked up the model samples probably close to a year ago at this point when it was on that crazy sale, and then a few weeks later, Electron sent me a Digitact. And at this point, if you've been following my latest videos, I've been like thriving with the Digitact, and it just completely overshadowed the model samples, which essentially is the lesser version of the Digitact, the more affordable version. The Digitact is currently the centerpiece of my DAWLESS setup, and it just handles everything so well. I've had no major issues with it. Obviously that it has its little problems, but so does all DAWLESS gear. Like I said, I'm on the edge. I'm like maybe 70% sure that I'm gonna sell this thing because I own the Digitact, but at the same time, I do wanna make some more content with it. It's a type of gear that you take it out, you look at it, you're like, I wanna play this thing. It has the same effect as like maybe the OP1. It might be one of those awkward things where like the person who's interested shows up to buy the model samples, and then as I'm showing them how it works, I like fall back in love with the instrument. That actually is something that happened to me once. I showed up to a guy's place to buy like a Hofner bass, and as he was showing it to me, I could see that he was like, oh, I actually still like this bass. After a few minutes, he was like, sorry, dude, I'm not selling it. So I showed up to his place for no reason. So it might be a repeat of that. From what I've seen, I do think that the Model Samples is awesome. It's totally capable. The only reason why I'd get rid of it is because of the Digitect. Pocket Operator Modular 400. I bought this like right before buying the OP1, and I have to admit that I haven't used it all that much. I featured it in only 1 or 2 YouTube videos at this point, and there's a reason for that. It's quite limited. That being said, I think that it's actually priced very well for what it is. It makes for a great like entry gateway into modular synths. But recently I've been pairing up with Moog Audio, which is a local synth and recording audio shop right down the street from me actually. And they lent me this. So that was sort of the nail in the coffin for me for getting rid of the Modular 400. Obviously because this rack is just so much more capable. Just looking at the 400, it's got 3 oscillators, so square, saw, sine, which do sound great. There's an LFO, filter, envelope, 2 VCAs, another envelope here, sequencer. I think this here is like the most limited part of the 400. It's hard to plug anything in there. Essentially, this is like the visual of your sequencer, and if you twist these, it just randomizes it so much, it's hard to have any sort of control. You might stumble upon some cool patterns, but within the sequencer, you can't really control like the notes that you're playing, the rhythms that you're playing as well. It's very random. Staying true to that exclusivity of Teenage Engineering, if you want to control it, you could use maybe the OPZ in combination with the OP Lab. Of course, you could use some other controller as well, but the OPC does pair very well with this. To me, it's just kind of a wild card. Aesthetically, it's so on point. Like, it looks great. I think that aesthetic does matter. A nice little smash of yellow in anyone's synth setup. So I won't go through all the details of the Gomixer Pro 10 in this video. Here's a video that goes into that if you want more specifics. This really is an amazing tool for DIY musicians, independent artists who want to just record directly into their phone, possibly while filming themselves with pro quality audio. You could literally record a band with this thing, plug it into your iPhone, and video record yourselves while you play all at the same time. So there's not really much else on the market that's like this. It's also priced very well. So in that respect, it's unique, it's an amazing product, and I think it's a 10 on 10. There's one issue that I've had with it. It doesn't handle gain super well. A perfect example of this is posting on a platform like TikTok. So let's say you're just like talking into your phone, it's quite loud. Same thing if there's an external speaker playing into your phone speaker, it's quite loud, it becomes compressed and loud. In my experience, the Gomixer Pro 10 just can't get that loud. If you push it, it just starts to distort and you can't use that audio. So you might not think that that's such a big deal, but if you think of someone scrolling through TikTok, they're scrolling, everything's at a certain volume. Let's say a video pops up and it's 10 decibels lower than all the other videos. Chances are they're just gonna scroll right past it. And of course, you could use like a DAW app on your phone to drop the audio into there and increase the volume from there. But still, it's not quite as loud as just playing straight into your phone speaker. It's a problem. I don't even think that that one reason alone merits to get rid of this thing, but I recently received the TX6, which is Teenage Engineering's mixer, audio interface, drum machine. That thing has way more ins and outs. You could use it as a field recorder, and it has multiple other uses as well. The thing about the TX6 though, of course, is the price. Infinite Jets by Hologram Electronics. So this is the same company that made the Microcosm, which I am never ever going to sell. Honestly though, I really tried. I couldn't get into the Infinite Jets. It just wasn't really fitting into my workflow. It has like a droney noise looping quality, which I tried to incorporate into my more like lush ambient sounding synths, I guess, like the Micro Freak. I also tried it with the Digitone. If you're really deep into droning and you just want like a drone sounding in the back of the rest of your track, this is a great tool for that, but I just wasn't really into the sounds. I found that organically its tones were just like a little bit harsh and like blocky, complete block wall of sound. But for me, I tried to use it on multiple occasions for over a year, and I think at that point it's just like, okay, this thing really isn't meshing with me. It's one of those rare occasions where I've owned a piece of gear and it never made its way into my content because I just couldn't find a way to incorporate it or use it in any sort of fresh way. The Microcosm is a completely different story. For my workflow, I just loved it. I absolutely love that pedal. I will never sell it. And that's a pedal that I've used in a lot of my content. It fits really well into ambient music. I put myself in a bit of a vulnerable position on this one, and I definitely got taken advantage of. So here's the story. I frequent Facebook forums pretty often, like, you know, synth related forums, like the SP404. When the SP404 Mark II was released almost a year ago now, I wanted to do an effects comparison between the Mark II and the 303. But at the time, the 303 was priced ridiculously. It was going for like $600-700. I didn't want to pay that amount like just for a YouTube video. So I dropped a few messages in some SP forums. There was someone who recognized who I was, I guess, and saw it as an opportunity to take advantage. Like, that's basically what happened. They sold it to me for an affordable price and mentioned that there was one of the pots that was busted. I can't remember which one it was. In the end, I ended up changing all 3 of them because they were all busted. Finding proper and new 303 pots in itself takes a while and is pretty expensive. So that took weeks for me to receive those. So at this point, maybe like 1 or 2 months later, my buddy had replaced all of the pots and I came over to try it out and realized that the circuit board is also kind of busted as well. So at that point, I sort of just gave up. So currently I own a busted SP303. The circuit board needs to be fixed. I would like to get rid of it. Obviously, I'm gonna communicate with the person who's interested and let them know exactly what I think the problem is. On top of that, I own the SP404 as well as the Mark II, so I'm not gonna be using this thing. I'm getting rid of it. I'm not gonna lie though, the guy who sold this to me like just completely took advantage. I'm not gonna mention him. It is what it is. Do not put yourself in that sort of position. I've done some content with Beatbox by Rhythmo, and it has been really fun. It's a monitor and MIDI controller. It's got speakers in the back, and they actually do sound pretty good and crunchy. They're not super loud, but they sound great. But again, going back to the concept of crossover, obviously tons of crossover here. I have the MPC-1. I also have, where is it? The MPD 218, which is a MIDI controller. So that's all been covered. Obviously the SP404 Mark II, same thing. There's crossover there. I still really like the ground roots idea of this thing. It's literally made of cardboard. It was sent unassembled, and if you look inside, I actually had to put all of this together. So you can imagine how long that took for someone who is not super savvy with this kind of stuff. I spent many hours putting this thing together, which I gotta say I did not enjoy. It was quite tedious, so the next person who buys it will not have to do that. As you can see, I kind of messed up. There's a bit of a blemish here when I was putting in these buttons. Going back to aesthetics, love the aesthetic of this thing, the white and the pink colors. Yeah, I just love this. It films really well. It does well on social media, little Instagram performance videos. But it really is just the sort of thing where like you show up in a park, this little handle here, so you can just walk into a park with this thing, whip out some phone app like, I don't know, Koala Sampler, and just get going. On top of that, it's battery powered as well, so you really can take this thing anywhere. I've done a few videos with Orba when it first came out, and I was super happy to be a part of the release team on that one. Here's some related content in case you're interested. They've actually gone ahead and released Orba 2, which is miles ahead of Orba 1. You could sample your own sounds into it, and it's just like a much more complete synth sampler MIDI controller. That being said, Orba 1 still does make for a great entry into the synth electronic music making world. I also recommend it to people who are interested in learning about sequencing, like hardware mixed with software as well, integration. Orba is great for that. Definitely a big recommendation to beginners and just folks who are generally interested. But again, I just have plenty of overlapping gear is what it really comes down to, which is the reason why I'm getting rid of this thing. Stylophone Gen X-1. So these things are super fun. Obviously very limited. These are all your controls right here. A little bit gimmicky because, you know, you have to like write in your notes. So what controls do you have? Envelope, attack, pitch, decay. Then you have an LFO. You could choose your wave, square, or triangle, the rate of the LFO, depth of the LFO. There's a delay as well, and there's also a filter. And then on the back here, you're actually able to like fine tune the pitch. I find that it's quite difficult. Like there's no ridge for in tune, I guess A440 or whatever like perfectly in tune is. There's no ridge for that, so it's hard to get it completely in tune. I did find that to be a little bit tedious. To its credit though, you do see the Stylophone Gen X-1 in like Instagram heavy synth videos, like the classic overhead camera with effects pedals. This thing, there's something about it aesthetically, I find that it works really well with Instagram. I gotta say that there are quite a few artists and creators that I follow that got this thing to sound really great, but I also acknowledge the fact that part of the reason why people choose to use the Stylophone Gen X-1 is because of the aesthetic. I mean, that could be said for any instrument. I find that to a certain extent the OP1 is in that category as well, although obviously it's a much more complex synth. I mean, it's just so 80s. I mean, look at that like synthwave font, Stylophone Gen X-1. Come on, TM. So I got you guys into like a purging mood. There's one thing that you should definitely never get rid of, and that's your membership with DistroKid. Clearly there's many reasons to never get rid of DistroKid. We're gonna be talking about one specifically, Hyperfollow, which is essentially a link in bio link. It's free. It's kind of a curveball because obviously DistroKid is a music distribution platform, and so they're going above and beyond in offering this as a free promotional tool. You can put together a totally centralized link hub with a lot of the same features that other platforms offer for pay. So I'll show you mine, but first, I'm one of DistroKid's most active creators, and so they gave me this special discount link for you guys to use in case you're not a member already. So step one is go to hyperfollow.com and reserve your username. From there, you just fill out all your info. As a side note, other platforms charge you specifically for ad tracking, and Hyperfollow offers you this for free. And so here's what the final result looks like. I've embedded my latest YouTube video, my latest single, social links, other important links I'd like to lead people to. It's all there, it looks really clean, and this is just one of many reasons to go with DistroKid in case you haven't already. Well, I guess it's time to get cleaning. As I mentioned, the money from this gear will most likely be reinvested into this studio or possibly another piece of gear to incorporate into my setup. I've been looking at the RMX 1000, which is great. I've already filmed a performance with it. Here it is if you want to hear what it sounds like. I've left a perfect circuit artist pick in the description of this video, so that's just like a list of some of my favorite gear and also gear that I've just owned, or at this point, I guess, gotten rid of. Join my Discord. Please do like and subscribe, possibly even share this video if you're into this sort of content. It's really nice to have you on board. Thank you so much for being here, and hope to see you in the next video.